The Lord be with you. Good morning. It's good to see your smiling faces. Well, most of you. As we gather here today, it is good to be in God's house together. And it is good to know there are folks worshiping with us that aren't in this space as they watch from home or other places. So let's always bear that in mind as we gather here. But thank you so much for taking the time, making the effort to be with us today as we gather to worship God. In the first chapter of Genesis, God said, "Let there be light." In the first chapter of John's Gospel, what is coming to being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. From John 3, words we read 2 Sundays ago, "While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. The light has come into the world, and people love darkness rather than light." In John's Gospel, John uses light and darkness as symbols. Light is a symbol of God's grace, God's love, God's forgiveness. Darkness is our tendency to want to turn away from the light rather than step into the light. Which is why we symbolically during this holy season extinguish this candle every time we're here to remove light as we try to focus our spirits on the light of a new morning on Easter Sunday. So today as we listen to a somewhat familiar story, try to see if you can see something in the story you might have missed before. It is good to be here. Thank you for joining us for worship. Let's stand as we call ourselves to worship.
When the world is dark and full of hate and fear, when we cannot see God, we will turn the light on. When we cannot find our way back to love and peace,
we will turn on the light.
When our vision dims due to the darkness within,
we will turn on the light.
Christ opens our eyes with the gift of sight. The light of the world is Jesus Christ.
Come and worship the one who brings sight to the blind.
Dance in the blue.
we live into the peace that Christ gives us, and that peace lives in us. And in light of that promise, we share that peace. May the peace of Christ be with you. Please share the peace of Christ with those nearby.
The Gospel reading from John. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was a man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. Then he spit on the ground, made mud with his saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. Siloam means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Never dies. There's a place where streams of grace flow deep and wide, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. Where your love and red and my sin washed white. I owe all to you. I owe
Gospel reading from John, Part 2. Then the people took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it. So he told them, "He put the mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man Jesus is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath." Others said, "But how could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs?" So there was a deep division of opinion among them. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
When we gather here to worship, and especially when we gather here and we pray together, we want this to be a safe space, a true sanctuary, a comforting place. And we try to make that a part of our worship whenever we gather. And at the same time, we know as God's people, we have to keep in balance those challenges that come and kind of interrupt the comfort for a while. I'm a Billy Joel fan. And in his song, Piano Man, he says, "Forget about life for a while." Folks come to that bar to forget about life for a while and lay aside the things that trouble them. And I know that there are days we want to forget about life for a while when we gather here. I know we can to a certain extent. But as God's people, we cannot insulate ourselves in here to avoid thinking about, acknowledging, praying about things that happen beyond this space. Iran is 6,600 miles away from Chesapeake, Virginia. And we watch the news and keep up with the war, and we will have our own opinions about that war. But when you know someone whose son last week was deployed from his Air Force base in Italy to go fight in that war, it gets close to home. Detroit, Michigan is 700 miles away from our church. But this past week, someone drove a car into the largest Reformed synagogue in that city. ODU is 6 miles away. And this week we know the tragedy that happened there. Members of our church had to evacuate. Students and folks we know had to leave the campus. One of our members who works for the FBI has been there around the clock Saturday and is there right now processing evidence from that scene. So may the safety of this place encourage us, but not keep us from acknowledging the darkness around us and praying that we might somehow, some way be light in the midst of that darkness and that death and that pain. With those words, would you join me as we pray together? Lord of life, we are a stubborn people. We complain about the darkness that seems to claim our lives and our country and our world. Yet we persist in creating darkness to cover our own mistakes and our own misdeeds. Nonetheless, you are merciful and will pardon and heal us. So we pray that you might help us to let go of the need to hide and punish ourselves when we make mistakes, but also free us up to be aware of those around us who are hurt and afraid and scared and who have lost their lives as well. Give us courage and confidence to be people of love, hope, and peace, not only in the safety of this sanctuary, but in conversations in places beyond these four walls. We've chosen to hide in darkness in order to avoid reaching out and risking acceptance. In a world filled with so much pain, we would rather shut our eyes and be blind than see things as they really are. Grant us the courage to face the reality of our world, and give us the strength to bring your light to those who walk in darkness. Help us to see others as you see them, and forgive us when we do not trust you enough to open our eyes to the possibilities before us. Give us courage to reach out to the light and accept its healing rays. When the world is dark and full of hate and fear, when we cannot find our way, when our vision is dim, help us to turn toward the light and help us to turn on the light. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
The Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could now see. So for the second time, they called in the man who had been blind and told him, God should get the glory for this, because we know this man, Jesus, is a sinner. I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied, but I do know this. I was blind, and now I can see. But what did he do, they asked. How did he heal you? Look, the man exclaimed, I told you once. Didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? They cursed him and said, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from. Why, that's very strange, the man replied. He healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he comes from? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and will do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not God, he couldn't have done it. You were born a total sinner, they answered. Are you trying to teach us? And they threw him out of the synagogue. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Gospel reading from John. When Jesus heard what had happened, he found the man and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Who is he, sir? I want to believe in him." "You have seen him," Jesus said, "and he is speaking to you." "Yes, Lord, I believe," the man said, and he worshiped Jesus. Then Jesus told him, "I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think that they see they are blind." Some Pharisees who were standing nearby heard him and asked, "Are you saying we're blind?" "If you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty," Jesus replied. "But you remain guilty because you claim you can see." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be pleasing to God, our rock and our Redeemer. I want you to do something for me. I want you to close your eyes tightly. Close your eyes tightly for 3 seconds. Don't go to sleep. Close your eyes while I count. 1, 2, 3. Now open your eyes and look at the image you see on the screen in front of you. What do you see? Do you see one vase, or do you see two faces? Some people look at this picture and they see a white vase on a black background. Other people see two faces on a white background. Some people don't see anything at all. They think it's a Rorschach test. Different people look at the same object and see different things. And in John 9, we encounter people who saw the same thing, but also saw it differently. There was a man born blind. On that fact, everyone seems to agree. He had become part of the local landscape, so familiar that people forgot to look at him, or they chose to look over him. He was born blind, and that was how he was classified for his entire life. He had been neatly placed in this blind and helpless category so that folks could go on with their lives, which meant everyone turned a blind eye to the man we meet. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. I'm caught by the way John tells the story. Everyone else walked by this man, even Jesus' own disciples, they saw just a blind man, blind from birth. All they could see, the first thing they noticed was his physical limitations. He was blind. End of story. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man. He saw a man first, a child of God. Jesus saw a man who happened to be blind, who has never seen anything, blind from birth. He is a beggar, utterly dependent upon the goodwill of his parents or others for bare survival. Jesus doesn't look upon the man with, the disciples don't look upon the man with much goodwill. The disciples want to know, "Rabbi, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins?" They wanted an answer as to why. Why did this happen? And they saw only two answers, two possibilities. The man sinned in his mother's tummy, or his parents sinned before he was born. Now, there are moments when we find ourselves asking the same question. We know that much of our pain and the pain of the world is hard to understand. It's like the fate of the man born blind. It just happens sometimes. So we ask ourselves our own versions of who sinned, this man or his parents. We ask why there is so much pain, why people, especially good people, get sick or hurt when it isn't their fault. We wonder why families so often don't work out the way families should work out, and we know how everybody wants them to work out. Why? We wonder about earthquakes and tsunamis and thunderstorms and floods. We wonder about shootings on school campuses. We wonder about a person who would run their car into a synagogue. We wonder about war, where innocent people are being killed. Like the disciples, we want answers. But we want answers that make sense. It's important to catch what Jesus does when he responds to this question. First, he rejects the accepted answer in that time to the question of why. Jesus refuses to make sense of this situation by explaining it in terms of either God's will or human sin. He rejects the explanation that bad things happen because the people are bad, or because people don't have enough faith, or because they don't pray the right way, or whatever explanation folks come up with in the past and even now to make sense of things that are completely senseless. Neither Jesus nor our Christian faith offers any clear explanation of suffering, why things happen, why bad things happen. Neither Jesus nor our Christian faith gives us answers to the problem in the ways we want answers. Instead, we're left with the fact that we live in a world that really isn't fair, a world that is marked by ambiguity and inconsistency, a world that at times can be dangerous. We live in a world where tragedy happens for no apparent reason to folks who absolutely do not deserve it. The point is not that if we just have enough faith, these questions won't matter, or somehow we'll understand them without an answer that we can comprehend. The questions do matter. The questions are important. But we will never understand them to our satisfaction. And it doesn't do any good to pretend otherwise or just to blame somebody and let ourselves off the hook of grappling with things that we cannot quite understand. Jesus does not give answers to the question of why. And we make mistakes if we think he does in this conversation in John chapter 9. Jesus does say of the man born blind that through him, the works of God can be seen by those willing to see. That is, the place to look for God in this tragedy or in any tragedy is not on the front end, causing it to happen. The place to look for God, the place to find God, is in the middle of the mess, in the very worst parts of it, working there to bring forth something new, something different, even something we cannot see or understand. Not something that fixes a mess, but something that redeems it and transforms it. The God who is found there, the God who is active there, is the God who knows what suffering is like, and that is the God who shares our suffering and our pain and pours into it God's unlimited compassion and grace. The pain and suffering don't disappear at the snap of a finger. But God's grace and compassion give us some perspective that we otherwise would not have. This is not an explanation of what happens. The point is that God can be found in very real ways in the very heart of undeserved and inexplicable pain. The point is that God can be found in very real ways in those things that happen to us. And Jesus is there because Jesus breaks the rules, and when he breaks the rules, his light comes in. Because the rules say somebody sinned. This man or his parents, that's why he's blind. Somebody sinned. Somebody made a mistake. And we get caught like those early disciples and folks around that man with cause and effect thinking. If this, then that. No other explanation makes sense. And we only see the situation from one perspective, the one that makes sense to us. Even when Jesus says, and by the way, no one sinned. That's the first thing Jesus says. Here's the second thing Jesus says. We must carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. We must carry out the task. He doesn't say, I'm here to carry out those tasks. He said, we must carry out those tasks. We together must carry out the task given to us by God. Tragedy, pain, and suffering can be invitations to minister and serve others. This may or may not be a call to fix whatever the problem is, because often we can't fix the problem. But it is a call, an invitation to reach out and care in some way. To share the presence of God in the heart of the tragedy. Whether that tragedy is 6,000 miles away or 700 miles away or across the bridge in a nearby city. We're called to reach out and share words of hope and encouragement and support. Now, this isn't an explanation either. Terrible things don't happen so that we have an opportunity to minister and serve others. God doesn't work that way. But the call to minister to others and serve others is part of Jesus' response to the reality of tragedy and pain and suffering. It doesn't justify them. Jesus shows the disciples and all of us that even amidst things we cannot understand, God is at work. And to prove this, Jesus does what he does in John's Gospel. He performs a sign. He gives the man sight. He also gives him something much, much more. The man who is blind receiving sight really isn't the point of this story. The man's physical traits are only a part of the larger arc of what John is trying to tell us. What is more important in this story is this man's relationship with Jesus and what this teaches us about our relationship with Jesus. The man can't quite put into words what's happened to him. He doesn't know why he's been healed, why his sight's been back. When Jesus says to him, go, wash, and he does just that, and he came back seeing. He can't explain it. He can just receive the gift of sight that he now has. When he talks about this with Jesus later on, even though he doesn't understand completely, he does cry out, Lord, yes, I believe. This is a story about how Jesus invites us and to what he invites us into. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Who among us has not at one point along the way kind of been caught up in spiritual blindness in one form or another? We don't intentionally do it. It happens in our humanness. When we put ourselves before others, we're blind. When we hold grudges and refuse to forgive, we're blind. When we do what is easy rather than what is right according to Jesus, we are blind. And how many of us have experienced our own suffering at the expense of someone else? What they've said about us, how they've treated us. Add to that wars and worries, anxiety, depression, loss of jobs. The list goes on and on. Suffering is real. Suffering is painful. Grief is awful, even horrifying at times. But it is an inescapable part of our humanity. Even in this safe place where we want to be comforted, We cannot hide from or run from that reality. And the life-giving truth of the good news of the gospel is that our suffering and our grief, our worries, our fears will not have the last word. We may not understand that now, and it may take a while to get there. But those words, those experiences will not have the last word. Because as we open ourselves up to what's troubling us, what's unsettling to us, the things we can't understand, the things that make us angry and hurt us, when we cry out in our pain, our confusion, we oftentimes hear the voice of the risen Christ calling us, reminding us that through the cross, the final word we will hear is not death and destruction, but we'll hear words of life and peace. And we'll begin to see things the way Jesus sees them. Pain is still there, hurt is still there, but I'm seeing things differently now because I'm listening to the voice of Jesus and what he tells me to do. Then we hear the same words this man heard: go, wash. And as those cool, refreshing waters of life wash over us, our eyes and our hearts are open to believe the living Christ. And together we raise our voices, yes, Lord, I believe. Now, the story ends with a line that's kind of disturbing. Jesus said, I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think they see that they are blind. And when the Pharisees heard this, they were upset. Are you talking about us? And Jesus simply responded, if you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty. But you remain guilty because you claim you can see. So I can share with you the times I'm guilty of not seeing the things I need to see, or turning the other way, or making some excuse. I'm right there with you, Jesus. But then I close my eyes to what's happening around me, and I close my eyes to what's happening inside of me. Physical blindness is bad enough, but Jesus flips the script and moves from the literal to the spiritual. And one of the most dangerous spiritual places in which we can live is the mistaken notion that we are fully sighted, spiritually speaking. We can see it all. And we know we cannot. And we know we do not. And we know we choose not to. At the same time, perhaps the healthiest place to live is not only to acknowledge our blindness, but to embrace it as a place we can live and learn from. Every time I read this story, I'm always caught by the nuanced ways we can understand blindness and the different ways Jesus spoke about blindness, especially in John's Gospel. And it gives me pause. What does it really mean to be blind spiritually? What is inner blindness? How does one open oneself to receive the inner light of grace? Maybe this man serves as a model for us as we encounter those difficulties in life and as we encounter the mystery of Jesus. Once the blind man had never seen, then he's healed, and even though it's difficult, he sees Jesus and wants to see Jesus as who Jesus really is. Maybe the blind man can help us find our place in this story. When the man born blind is sure he can see, he sees Jesus, but he doesn't fully understand who Jesus is. He can't explain what's happened, but some way he's drawn to Jesus' presence and Jesus' healing touch. He knows he's been healed physically. And as he believes, he knows he will be changed and transformed spiritually because he can now see things he could never see before. The miracle is not that the man can see. The scandal is not that Jesus broke the Sabbath rules to heal this man. The miracle is the fact that Jesus, the light of the world, can turn any darkness into light. That he can begin slowly to peel back the blindness, allow us to see as he sees. But more than that, the story demonstrates that we can be people of light in our own unique way. We can turn darkness into light. Even if it means we have to break some of the rules we've been told to do so. The real blindness in the story isn't physical. It belongs to the religious folk. They're so blinded by their rules and their certainty to explain why that they cannot see the miracle right in front of them. And this man's testimony doesn't fit in their worldview. They'd rather have a blind man they pass by every day than someone who challenges the way they've been thinking about how God works. The story calls us to examine our own selves, our own eyesight. Are we blinded by the need to be right all the time? Are we blinded by the need to blame someone when things happen? Are we blinded by the fact that we want our right religion to be more important than taking care of those around us that don't understand religion at all? This is not a story about seeing with your eyes, it's about seeing with your heart. It's not about whether we see, but how we see. Will we allow Jesus to help us see with eyes of love, eyes of light, not judgment? How do we see? How do we fail to see people? May we, like the blind man, have the courage to say, I once was blind, but now I see. Let us be people who allow the light to fill us, and may we in our own way be the works of God to those we meet. Thoughts for you to carry with you. What does it really mean to be blind? What is inner blindness? How does one open oneself to receive the inner light of grace? Are there people you do not see whom you're called to see more deeply? Are there places in your life where, like the Pharisees, you are blind and you don't even know it? And who in your life has helped you to see Jesus? We're going to sing about God's amazing grace, and we will sing the words, I once was blind, but now I see. May these words encourage you and call you to respond as we stand and sing together.
Amazing grace, how sweet
Don't sit down. Follow my lead. Stand up, follow my lead. Move to the right. Move to the left. Take a step to the right. Take a step to the left. Follow me, follow my lead. All right, now you can be seated. This row back here had it together, that row right there. They were moving in sync with the beat of the music. Everybody else was either scared to move or holding your breath. It was not a sad sight, but we won't put it on our website to invite folks to come sing with us and dance at the same time. Thank you, choir. That was a good one. As we move through this coming week, let's catch up with things that are happening. Wednesday, we resume our Finding Jesus in the Psalms Bible study. We'll be looking at Psalm 100 primarily, 11 o'clock in room 109. That evening, we gather at Momac for Brewing Faith, and our topic is, why did Jesus have to die? Whether you want to have something there to drink or not, I invite you to join the conversation. Why did Jesus have to die? We begin at 6 o'clock. Then on the 29th, as we continue to remind you, we'll have our breakfast in the fellowship hall. Start planning your menu. You'll hear more about that this coming week. And then our Palm Sunday processional. And then we'll gather also on Maundy Thursday. A quick reminder, as soon as worship's over, we'll have a very brief special call business meeting. So we'll ask you just to stay here for church members. Stay here just for a moment instead of taking a break and coming back. But we're glad you're here. Thank you for being with us. Our worship continues with their offering. Would you please stand as we're sent forth? And for church members, if you would just remain here for a moment, allowing our guests to leave. I send you out with these words from 1 John. We declare to you what was from the beginning, what we have seen with our eyes, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Carry at least a small sliver of light with you as you leave today. Go in peace.